Before watching the video, can you please save a little bit time, like and subscribe to SkypluS have mover to increase?
On March 10, 2019, Flight 302 was a scheduled international passenger flight from Addis Ababa to Nairobi. The aircraft took off from Addis Ababa at 8:38 local time, 5:38 Universal Time Coordinated, with 149 passengers and 8 crew on board. The Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft, which the flight crashed near the town of Bishoftu 6 minutes after takeoff. This was the second MAX 8 accident in less than 5 months after the crash of Lion Air Flight 610. The crashes prompted a 2-year worldwide long-term grounding of the jet and an investigation into how the aircraft was approved for passenger service. The aircraft was a new Boeing 737 MAX 8, registered ETAVJ with the manufacturer's serial number of 62450, powered by 2 CFM International LEAP 1B engines. The aircraft was manufactured in October 2018 and delivered on November 15, 2018, making it around 4 months old at the time of the accident. The captain of the plane was Yared Getachew, 29, who had been flying with the airline for almost 9 years and had logged a total of 8,122 flight hours, including 4,120 hours on the Boeing 737. He had been a Boeing 737-800 captain since November 2017 and Boeing 737 MAX since July 2018. At the time of the accident, he was the youngest captain at the airline. The first officer, Ahmednur Mohammed, 25, was a recent graduate from the airline's academy with 361 flight hours logged, including 207 hours on the Boeing 737. One minute into the flight, the first officer acting on the instructions of the captain reported a flight control problem to the control tower. 2 minutes into the flight, the plane's MCAS system activated, pitching the plane into a dive toward the ground. The pilot struggled to control it and managed to prevent the nose from diving further, but the plane continued to lose altitude. The MCAS then activated again, dropping the nose even further down. The pilots then flipped a pair of switches to disable the electrical trim tab system, which also disabled the MCAS software. However, in shutting off the electrical trim system, they also shut off their ability to trim the stabilizer into a neutral position with the electrical switch located on their yokes. The only other possible way to move the stabilizer would be by cranking the wheel by hand, but because the stabilizer was located opposite to the elevator, strong aerodynamic forces were acting on it due to the pilot's inadequate thrust management. As the pilots had inadvertently left the engines on full takeoff power, which caused the plane to accelerate at high speed, there was further pressure on the stabilizer. The pilot's attempts to manually crank the stabilizer back into position failed. At 8:43, having struggled to keep the plane's nose from diving further by manually pulling the yoke, the captain asked the first officer to help him and turned the electrical trim tab system back on in the hope that it would allow him to put the stabilizer back into neutral trim. However, in turning the trim system back on, he also reactivated the MCAS system, which pushed the nose further down. The captain and first officer attempted to raise the nose by manually pulling their yokes, but the aircraft continued to plunge toward the ground. The aircraft disappeared from radar screens and crashed at almost 8:44, 6 minutes after takeoff. The aircraft impacted the ground at nearly 700 miles per hour. All passengers and crew on board, 157 in total, were killed in the accident. The Ethiopian Civil Aviation Authority, ECA, the agency responsible for investigating civil aviation accidents in Ethiopia, investigated the accident. The aircraft manufacturer, Boeing, stated that it was prepared to work with the United States National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, and assist Ethiopian Airlines. The United States Federal Aviation Administration also assisted in the investigation. Both the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder were recovered from the crash site on March 11. On March 13, 2019, the FAA announced that new evidence found on the crash site and satellite data on Flight 302 suggested that the aircraft might have suffered from the same problem which the aircraft operating Lion Air Flight 610 had suffered from. Investigators discovered the jack screw that controlled the pitch angle of the horizontal stabilizer of Flight 302 was in the full nose-down position. The findings suggested that, at the time of the crash, Flight 302 was configured to dive similar to Lion Air Flight 610. On December 23, 2022, the ECA released the final report in the crash, which stated, repetitive and uncommanded airplane nose-down inputs from the MCAS due to erroneous AOA input and its unrecoverable activation system which made the airplane dive with the rate of -33,000 feet/min, close to the ground was the most probable cause of the accident. Ethiopian Airlines said MCAS was active when the aircraft crashed. According to Ethiopian Transport Minister Dagmawit Moggs, the crew performed all the procedures repeatedly provided by the manufacturer but was not able to control the aircraft. The report confirms the flight crew followed the procedures prescribed by FAA and Boeing in Airworthiness Directive 2018 released shortly after the Lion Air crash.
Thank you for watching the video. If you have an idea of a flight, please comment below to everyone discuss.